All right, so I thought I would take a moment now to show you how to use the factor label method in a real-world scenario that is not chemistry. Again, we're spending all this time on simple questions before we apply this to stoichiometry, which is a term you haven't heard yet, but we will get to that very soon, and also to the mole, which is a concept that we'll be developing very, very soon. All right, so right now we're just sticking to non-chemistry terms, just so that you are familiar with this method, so that when it comes to applying this to chemistry, you are still okay with the method and you don't have to think too much about the individual steps. So the question that I'm going to walk you through is to figure out how many inches there are in 32 kilometers. Right? So you are given information, and that information is 32 kilometers, and you are asked to find how many inches there are. In every question such as this, you will have some kind of toolbox, and your toolbox basically contains all of your conversion factors. Some of these conversion factors are given in the problem, and some of them are just common reference material that you can access anywhere. So the toolbox that you are given for this particular problem includes 3 conversion factors. One is 1 kilometer is the same thing as 0.62137 miles. You are given a second conversion factor, which is 1 mile is equivalent to 5,280 feet. And the third conversion factor that you have is 1 foot is equivalent to 12 inches. All right. So of these 3, you are probably most familiar with the third one. The first 2 you can look up. All right. Okay. So to solve this problem, you again start with the given information. So 32 kilometers, and I'm going to set up my grid. So I have a choice of 3 conversion factors. The one that I'm going to be using is the one that links my first unit to another one. So if I look at my conversion factors, I notice that the first one is going to take me closer to my final destination, which is number of inches. So at this point, I need to set up my conversion factor, and there are a couple ways of doing this. So I can set it up as a ratio where I have it as 1 kilometer over 0.62137 miles, or I could reverse it and have 0.62137 miles all over 1 kilometer. All right. At this point, I am going to be choosing the one that has kilometers on the bottom. Oops. And my reason for that is because I want kilometers to cancel out diagonally. So again, this is all about setting up. So I'm going to put 1 kilometer on the bottom, 0.62137 miles on the top. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to continue on with my problem. I am 1 step closer. Now I am at miles. All right. So you can see here how my units of kilometers are canceling out diagonally, and that is because I used my first conversion factor right there. Okay, so continuing on now with the rest of the problem, I am at miles, and my next part is going from miles to a step closer to inches. So if I go back to my toolbox, I notice that I have miles right there, and I can go from miles to feet, and then later on I can go from feet to inches to get to my final destination. So same thing here, I'm going to set up my conversion factors, so I can either set it up as 5,280 feet over 1 mile, or I can flip it and have 1 mile on the top and 5,280 feet on the bottom. The one that I choose, again, depends on the problem. In this case, I notice that miles is on top, so I want miles on the bottom to cancel it out. So that means I'm going to be using this first version right there. So 1 mile goes on the bottom, 5,280 feet will go on top. And I noticed that everything cancels out beautifully, diagonally that is, and now I'm left with feet on top. All right. So last part, I am 1 step closer to my final answer. The third conversion factor is going to be the last one that I use. So again, I'm going to set this up again. So I could have 1 foot over 12 inches, or I can reverse it and have 12 inches over 1 foot. And in this case, I want the feet to cancel out diagonally, which means I am going to choose this version right there to put right there. So 1 foot is equivalent to 12 inches. And you can see how the feet cancel out. I am left with inches on top, which is what I want, since that is what I'm asked to find. Okay, so you can see here how I did not touch my calculator at any point. The calculator part comes at the end once I'm done setting up. So I just want to take a moment and remind you how you start off with a given information, and your user, in this case, you're using not just one conversion factor, but a total of 3 different conversion factors that you got from your toolbox that was given earlier in the problem. All right, so finally, to set this up into your calculator, I have 32 on top. I multiply that by 0.62137, and I multiply that by the next number, which is 5,280, and I multiply that by the final number, which is 12. And then I divide by everything in the bottom. So I have 1, 1, and 1, so basically I divide it all by 1. And my final answer is a pretty large number that I am going to round. So as I look at all my numbers, I notice that my smallest or least precise number basically is 32, and that is 2 significant figures. So I'm going to round this to basically this number right here. So my final answer to this question is 32 kilometers is approximately 1,200,000 inches, which you can also express using scientific notation, which would be 1.2 times 10 to the, and to figure out that exponent, you basically go like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 10 to the 6 inches. And there you have it. That is my final answer in